On May 24, 2018, a group of students and concerned citizens gathered at the Cache County Courthouse in Logan, Utah, to participate in the nationwide March for Our Lives protest. This event was in response to a series of mass shootings in churches, concerts, and schools that have taken place in the last few years. I went to this event to ask participants why they were marching and what actions they would like to see the government take to combat gun violence.
So I'm here because I have two children, one 4-year-old and one 9-month-old, and I would move mountains to keep them safe. And I want to call on our lawmakers to ban semi-automatic or assault-style rifles, bump stocks, and high-capacity magazines, to implement universal background check, to have adequate funding at our community and school-based mental health facilities, and to implement red flag laws so that we can seize guns from people like the Parkland shooter who were reported to law enforcement, and temporarily seize those guns under court order. And I also want a repeal of the Dickey Amendment from 1996 so that we can research the causes of gun violence and address it appropriately.
I think we have history on our side. When youth organize and get together and make change happen, change is possible. We've seen that with the Greensboro sit-ins, with the Children's Crusade, with tons of times in history where when kids get organized, things happen. And I think that this is going to be another example of that. So.
I'm a teacher, and I just really feel strongly about keeping guns out of our school. I don't feel like teachers should carry guns. I feel like our political leaders need to change our laws on who can get a gun, and to not even allow, there's no reason to have a semi-automatic weapon, so ban those and get rid of those. Those of our political leaders who take money from the NRA need to be voted out, so I think let's make a change.
I really believe in the political power that youth have and the democratic process of the nation, and that grouping together really has the capability of making a difference, because just through my political involvement already, I've been able to notice that the amount of change just even a single person can have, because they influence other people who, it creates the ripple effect, and then all of a sudden it's just this massive movement, just like, this all started with just a few teenagers. So I would like to see a lot of things happen in regards to gun control and regulation, background checks, limitation of abolishment of AR-15s, for instance, really hitting the point home for locking guns in houses, stuff like that.
I'm Molly Kate Greenouch, a student in the sculpture class at USU that helped create the project that we have here today. Many of my fellow students and I want to present to you another point of view concerning our art. Since the Sandy Hook shooting in 2012, lawmakers have scrutinized with great zeal our Constitution's Second Amendment. It states that a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This right to bear arms in our nation is to protect against threats, domestic and foreign. Let the Second Amendment stand as a defense against this domestic violence. Schools, religious facilities, and gun-free zones create venues of mass slaughter.
We shouldn't get rid of any of the guns, that we need to find problems to the mental illnesses that people have, and that we need to arm our teachers. Also, that more resource officers, people on the campuses or around religious facilities can help the safety of our students and all the people that aren't or don't have a way to protect themselves. I believe that through guns we can become a safer community, and that having guns on campus and having other people know that there are guns there and people that are trained and capable of using them will deter future violence and future problems.
What does this sculpture mean to you?
This sculpture represents, we wanted it to represent the 17 kids that died in the Parkland shooting, and we also want it to represent the other half of our class wants it to represent the Second Amendment, and that it is a right that we need to keep and that we need to fight for.
There is power in numbers, and we are the future, the youth is the future, and we can see like a lot of people here where we can make change. So that's kind of just why I'm here, because I want to make a change. And like the changes I do want to see, it's honestly just like, obviously like less death, right? Like that's what we want. We just want more change. And
my message is that people are dying, and anytime people are dying, never in any situation do we just kind of shrug our shoulders and say, yeah, it's something that happens. And we need to start a conversation as a whole people, not partisan people, not one party or the other, or one culture or another. We need to all come together and talk about what are we going to do to solve this problem. Guns are creating more problems than they're solving. Is there a reason to stop having them? And there is, and I think that we have to come together as people and talk about it and have a conversation about why do we have them, why shouldn't we have them, what can we do about it.
Like why I'm out here is I shouldn't go to school, look around and think what happens if someone decided to walk in and with a gun and start killing innocent children. And really what I want to happen is I want the legislation to control gun laws, and I want it to end. Like I want to be the generation that affected the change that ended mass murder of innocent children.
I have been a principal for 25 years, retired now, and I've seen too much violence in my own home state of Wisconsin, multiple killings. Something's got to stop. Thoughts and prayers just will not do it anymore. We need policies and we need action. The last time we had any gun action to help people was with Ronald Reagan, who actually banned long guns, banned assault rifles. When the Congress decided back in the 1980s to let this law expire, he personally wrote letters to all the congressmen saying, please don't let it expire. If you're truly a Republican, if you truly value Reagan's opinion, you know what you need to do.
My message today is I think uncomfortable conversations need to happen, and more love and less guns. And I'm gonna keep it simple, so that's my message today. More love, less guns.
That we don't need semi-automatic assault type rifles around for public availability. There's no use for them. I hunt, I fish, I own guns, but these guns are built for nothing other than killing human beings. And in response to this idea that we need to be able to stand up to our government, I don't care if you have 20 of these, the helicopter's going to take you out. And so there's just absolutely no need. The only reason they're available is because of money and the NRA. I think they need to be banned. I think there needs to be a government buyback of all of them that are out there already and banned. And is this going to stop all of the situations? Absolutely not, but it'll stop a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, I think what brought me out is I was a public school teacher for 10 years, and I was part of the lockdown drills and explaining to kids why we have to do those things. And I have a 2-year-old now, and I just really want things to change so that my 2-year-old doesn't have to worry about her safety at school and doesn't have to hear about the possibility that someone could come into school with guns and what we have to do in that situation. I didn't grow up like that, and I don't want her to grow up like that either, so that's why we're here. I think it should be harder to get a gun than it is. I think that mental health is a huge issue that we need to be paying attention to. I just don't think that people should have access to semi-automatic weapons. I think that we need to have stricter guns. Not get rid of guns entirely, but we need to have stricter policies.
When I see the gun issues, I think how illogical it is that people have to have assault rifles. Because if you look at the Second Amendment, it talks about the right to bear arms. It talks about a well-regulated militia. But at the time that was written, we had muzzleloaders. We didn't have assault rifles. And our militia became our army during the Revolutionary War. So we don't need assault weapons on the streets. They should all be confiscated.
I'm here because I'm a mother of a 2-year-old, and it scares me to death to think about putting him into school in a few years. And I just want my son and everybody else's children to be safe. And this has just gotten out of control in this country. It's become an epidemic, and we need to do something about it. I'd like to see legislation. Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to see universal background checks. I'd like to see a ban on AR or assault-style weapons. I'd like to see more mental health funding. I'd like to see funding for research for the causes of gun violence.
My message would be that there's a lot of common sense things that we can do to limit and prevent gun violence in this country, and I wish that there was more debate and research. I would like to see mandatory background checks, and I would like to see mandatory gun licensing.
I'm here to kind of protest gun violence, and because I have a family, and I can't imagine being a parent in the place of some of the parents whose kids have been the victims of gun violence.
I'm trying to send a message that teachers should not be responsible for having guns in their classroom, that a teacher's job is to teach, a children's job is to learn, and the law is to protect. And only the law should be able to do that, to have guns on school property. I'd like to see some laws changed. Number one, I'd like to see that assault rifles are banned from civilians. It should only be law enforcement, and it only should be the military and not citizens.
You know, I think the main message is we need to do a better job in this country in protecting our children, get control of the weapons that we have in our country. And we're not against the Second Amendment, we just want a common sense approach. We believe that people should have their guns to protect themselves and to hunt. But we need to get the guns out of the people that are harming our children.
I'd also like to see that people are taken seriously when, I think it's the red flagging, they're taken seriously when they have loved ones that they know are suffering from mental illness and are showing signs that they could be a danger to themselves and to others.
I just want our Congress and our representatives and the President to see how dangerous AR-15s or any assault rifle is, and they say that we shouldn't punish the many for the few, but in this case, it's kind of what it has to come to. On my sign, I wrote, "Your right to own a gun does not outweigh my right to live," and I think that can be applied to anybody, and I think banning assault rifles is a good way to start.
I'm tired of it. I cried at Sandy Hook. I have a teddy bear sitting on the bed there, hoping something would get done. I watched Orlando. I cried with every one of them. We've got to do something. Congress has to come together. They have to compromise, and they have to fix the problem. That's my message.
I'm just out here to support the high school students and college students across this nation, who I don't think should put up with this kind of thing. I don't think any of us should. A friend and I were just talking. An automatic weapon, it's kind of a cool toy for somebody who enjoys guns, but it's not worth the kind of carnage that we're seeing across this country. Well, I'd like to see those guns more regulated. I'd like to see people have to get licenses like they have to do to drive a car in order to operate any gun. It's a dangerous, lethal weapon. I don't believe the Second Amendment supports the right of people to have this kind of firepower. That amendment was written over 200 years ago. We have new technology now, and these weapons can kill tens of people in a minute. It's not a matter of getting together a bunch of farmers for a militia.
I'm trying to send a message to Congress that we don't need assault rifles or weapons of war in the hands of the community other than for law enforcement or for protecting a country. I would like to see Congress actually pay attention and hear us and vote on this subject.
It's time we support the children. They're acting more like adults than the adults. And I do believe that our forefathers are rolling in the grave saying, "Don't put this on me." Nobody's ever going to take their guns. They need to stop whining. I want to see my grandkids grow up without fear. I am a survivor of gun violence, and it was years ago, and they shouldn't live like that.
I just really hope with this movement we can motivate those voters, because a lot of us will be able to vote in the next 2 years. Just motivate us to make sure we go out there and vote, and make sure we vote for those who we believe in, actually get involved.
I believe that this country has become a culture of violence, and I think we need to turn that around, and in order to do that we need to talk about it and open up conversations like the one we had today, and make sure that people can see another way through other than the violence. Yes, I'd like to see assault weapons banned in this country. I'd like to see universal background checks, and I'd like to see the red flag law enacted here in Utah too.
We're all trying to go towards a similar message where we love everyone, we don't want to see people killed. So what's the best way to do that? It's mainly about whether or not we can prevent guns from getting people killed. So what can we do as a community to show that we're willing to work together to bring about peaceful change so that our nation isn't broken up because people look at minor differences and opinions and use that to prevent us from bringing about change that can potentially save lives. And that's why I'm out here today.
Less violence, keep our kids safe, and background checks for weapons. I would like them to back the people. Back the people. The people are speaking out, and they got to listen to us. What did we elect them for?
My message for today is just that we need to have some sort of control, because what we're doing right now by just kind of acting like nothing is happening obviously isn't doing anything, and there's been multiple shootings time after time and nothing is being done about it. I'd like to see at least some gun control happening.
My message is that we need to listen to our children. They're speaking by the millions, and we need to change the gun laws. We need more background checks. I'd like for our politicians to listen to us, and if they don't, then I'd like to see them voted out and replaced with people that will listen to us.
On February 14th, while in my 4th hour class, I looked down at my phone to see a breaking news headline that said at least 17 people had been killed during the school shooting in Parkland, Florida. I felt nothing. A slight sense of shock ran through me as I read the article, and I became disgusted by my own desensitization. Later that day, I told my 10-year-old sister what had happened. She was all but unfazed. She asked a few shallow questions and was ready to change the subject. I was angry, not at my sister, but at society for allowing this to become the status quo. 12 of the 20 deadliest mass shootings had occurred in my sister's lifetime. 12 mass shootings, all with more than 10 victims between 2007 and the beginning of 2018. Why hadn't anything changed? The last time Congress passed sweeping gun regulations was in 1994, and those provisions lapsed in 2004. In the words of Emma Gonzalez, I call BS. The time has come for our congressional representatives to stop hiding behind NRA money. Our right to life is more important than the dollar figure sitting in your campaign bank account. Enough cowardice. Take responsibility for your inaction. We demand that you issue a ban on automatic weapons and attachments such as bump fire stocks. Pass a universal background check law that includes mandatory NICS reporting and closes the gun show loophole. Pass gun violence restraining order laws to keep guns out of the hands of violent individuals. Ensure that students feel protected in the one place they should never have to fear for their lives. We remind you that the leaders of this movement will be eligible to vote in 4 years or less. And if you refuse to act on the gun violence epidemic that is plaguing our nation, we will vote you out. Enough is enough. What will it take for you to realize that thoughts and prayers are not enough? What will it take for you to realize that the veil of grief that you hide behind only costs lives rather than spare them? We demand policy and action. In fact, we deserve policy and action. For the sake of the Parkland victims, for our sake, for the sake of your children, do everything in your power to end these atrocities. To all of you in attendance, I say, our calls to action mean absolutely nothing if we allow our involvement and engagement to end here. Register to vote, and more importantly, vote. Pester your representatives with calls, emails, and letters. Support candidates who pledge to fight alongside us, and if you have to, run for office yourself. historic one. Today, we join hundreds of thousands of students, parents, and educators in saying never again. Unity must be what drives this movement. Stand up together, speak out together, network with each other. There is strength in numbers. We are fighting an uphill battle that will only be won through hard work, determination, and togetherness. I know that it can be hard to work through the sadness and sorrow and sometimes anger that has enveloped this issue, but let it fuel you. Use it to channel the energy of the victims of all mass shootings. We march in honor of their lives as much as we march for our own lives. Thank you.
The people that I talked to were genuine in their wanting change that will reduce gun-related deaths. They realize that this is a multifaceted problem that requires a multifaceted solution. In order to know which solutions will help reduce gun-related deaths, it's first necessary to understand the problem. Currently, the government cannot study gun violence because of the Dickey Amendment, which was lobbied for by the NRA. Until this amendment is repealed, it will be impossible for the government to get accurate data from which effective legislation can be passed, and the lives of its citizens protected.